Motorcycle riders flashed by, attached a magnetic bomb onto a car carrying a nuclear scientist working at Iran's main uranium enrichment facility. So get a picture of this. This car is driving along. Here comes these motorcycle riders, and they attach a magnetic bomb to the car. By the time the blast tore apart the silver Peugeot, the bikes were blocks away, weaving through terrain traffic. After what Iran calls the latest strike in an escalating covert war. The attack, which instantly killed the scientist and fatally wounded his driver on Wednesday, was at least the fourth targeted hit against a member of Iran's nuclear brain trust in 2 years. Tehran quickly blamed Israeli-linked agents backed by the U.S. Britain. Well, who else would be responsible for it, folks? Continuing on with the article, Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton denied any U.S. role in the slaying in the Obama administration. Quickly condemned the attack. However, provocative hints from Jerusalem reinforced the perception of an organized and clandestine campaign to set back Iran's nuclear ambitions. The day before the attack, which would be this last Tuesday, Israeli military chief Lieutenant General Benny Gantz was quoted as telling a parliamentary panel, quote, that 2012 would be a critical year for Iran, in part because of, quote, things that happened to it unnaturally. Things that happened to Iran unnaturally. Quote, the blast killed Mostafa Ahmadi Roshan, a chemistry expert and a director of the Natanz uranium enrichment facility, the centerpiece of Iran's expanding program to make nuclear fuel. Roshan, 32-year-old now, okay? Pretty young gentleman. Had planned to attend a memorial later Wednesday evening for another nuclear researcher who was killed in a similar pinpoint blast 2 years ago. Iranian media said. So it's not just this, there was a similar problem, a similar hit 2 years ago. A heinous act, said Iran's Atomic Energy Organization of Wednesday's bombing. But it added a tone of defiance, quote, we will continue our nuclear path without any doubt. Our path is irreversible, said the statement carried on state television. The state news agency, IRNA, said Roshan had, quote, organizational links to Iran's nuclear agency, which suggests a direct role in key aspects of the program. Another news agency, the semi-official Meyer, said Roshan had been interviewed by inspectors from the UN Nuclear Watchdog Agency, which Iran has accused of placing its scientists in peril by including their names in public reports. Natanz in central Iran is the country's main enrichment site. documents. Here's what Secretary of State Hillary Rodham, the Ice Princess of Ice Queen of Narnia, has to say about it. Quote, I want to categorically deny any United States involvement in any kind of act of violence inside Iran. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton told reporters in a news conference, quote, we believe there has to be an understanding between Iran, its neighbors, and the international community that finds a way forward for it to end its provocative behavior and its search for nuclear weapons, and to rejoin the international community and be a productive member of it. Folks, this is just plain bass backwards. It's totally fine for Israel to be not only in charge of nuclear weapons, but biological and chemical weapons, massive stockpiles. It's okay for little rogue nation Israel to have all of this, but again, what proof is there that Iran can make a nuke? Maybe they are just trying to get a superior source of electricity. Maybe. Why should Iran be asked to stop pursuing nuclear power? And why should Iran be targeted with, complete Hollywood-style assassinations when Israel can take out the world? There's another incredible tie to this. Let me just share this with you. This is this fellow, I don't know who he is. I've been following him a little bit, but his name is Jim Stone. He says he's a freelance journalist. He just recently, on January 8th, posted the following piece called Nuclear Blackmail. Jim Stone writes, quote, Israel's nuclear deterrent method exposed. This information was discovered as part of my Fukushima report, which wrecked my life. So I am forced to relocate now at least once every 2 weeks for my safety. I might as well finish the job of wrecking my life, so here goes. Now, his Fukushima report is quite lengthy, quite detailed. I comment on it a little bit. The primary, and this is verifiable, the Fukushima report says the meltdown of a nuclear reactor in Fukushima happened well before the earthquake. And it was sabotaged. Well, as he did this research, he claims that he uncovered a real dirty little secret, and this is what he posted. Let me just read it, and then I'll comment as I find it valid. He writes, quote, there is a reason why the United States government is waging war all over the world, even obviously against the good of the nation. There is a reason why the U.S. government rapidly rolled over and did the banker bailout without questions, in an amount which exceeded the value of every mortgage in the country by more than 3x, 3 times, and every mortgage in default by over 15x, an amount which will destroy America once the ripple effect is finished. Many of you are no doubt scratching your heads, wondering why every elected president turns back on his campaign promises the second the inauguration is completed. Believe me, the corruption of American elected officials is not that deep. You cannot elect several presidents in sequence and have them all perfectly screw this country, especially the way Bush and Obama did. They had the reason, and it is called nuclear blackmail. Let me just stop there and tell Mr. Stone, it's not just nuclear blackmail, it's biological weapons blackmail. These people have control over the most deadly pathogens known to man. You have Hollywood putting out movies like Contagion, showing what will happen, and then I'm sure they send copies of this to elected officials. You either do what we say or watch people die. You won't have a constituency. You want to do what's best for America, you follow what we tell you to. I don't think that maybe nuclear blackmail was happening in the 60s or 70s, but I don't think it's happening now. They don't want to nuke everything because it destroys everything, but boy, have a race-specific virus that kills Christian Caucasians. Pure blood serpent seed, 2% of the population is completely immune to it because of their genetics. And I think you get my point. But we'll just continue with his piece on nuclear blackmail. I could write a whole story on, in fact I have written it, okay, on biological weapon blackmail. It makes the most sense. But nukes are good for certain black operations. Folks, never forget it was a small bunker buster nuclear bomb that took out the Twin Towers that began the melting of those columns. It was actually three small nuclear bombs in the pillars of the basement. People forget. They talk about Judy Wood this and the scalar weapons that, but they forget, that scalar weapons can create radioactivity. They can't create electromagnetic pulses, EMPs, that take out telecommunications, electric equipment all around Manhattan, and they sure as heck can't cause concrete and steel to become powderized and radioactive. The reason why there's so many ill people, first responders, etc., is because it's highly radioactive dust. Cal State Berkeley came in and they measured again the dust, its tritium levels, the radioactivity, way above healthy levels. And who has ability to not only make, but to bring in such nuclear small nukes? Well, of course, it's not Osama bin Laden in some cave in Bora Bora. Okay? But let's continue with Stone's expose here. Quote, what if What if they, these politicians, the candidates, the new presidents, what if they never wanted to renege, at least not so completely, on their campaign promises? What about Obama? And what about the other countries, which also screwed their people the same way? Why is it seemingly a universal truth that all governments around the world are simultaneously going against the will of their people in favor of these Jewish banksters and Israel? I believe I have figured it out, he writes, and I have documented. I'm going to tell you the hows and whys of Israel's dirty little secret, how they got their nuclear offensive capability in the first place, why they decided on the chosen method, and how they ended up using it. Right, what if Israel came up with a way to smuggle nuclear weapons into the most sensitive areas of all the developed nations? Areas where if anything big goes boom, all is lost. Could there be a clandestine reason for the supposed shortage of helium-3, which is needed in the type of radiation detectors required to detect a nuclear weapon? You can block protons, but neutrons are difficult to shield entirely, and you can forget about neutrinos. You can't hide a nuke from the right detector, one which uses helium-3 in its detector element. How is it that America and all the other nations somehow ran out of helium-3 a few decades ago, which simultaneously left their borders open to nuclear weapons smuggling? Is this coincidence? I think not. The picture to the left appears to be a legitimate camera in a body that could also hold a nuke. He shows pictures here, but he also goes in and shows a blast at Fukushima number 3, which the Israeli security firm Magna BSP, quote, secured with one of their cameras. And yes, the blast, as you saying it, is no doubt a nuclear, again, a tactical nuclear weapons test. See, what you have to realize, folks, is nuclear weapons are not all the big, destructive nasties you see. You think the big mushroom cloud and multiple scales of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. No, no, no. The new tactical nukes are small. They're up at the height of a suitcase or a briefcase. But they're so small, but the destructive energy, the directed energy power blast, they're incredible. They're the ultimate tool of the demolition team that wants to specifically target a core reactor or structures such as the pillars of the World Trade Center towers. Stone writes, quote, Israel's main strategy has been to smuggle nuclear weapons into sensitive areas of nations under the disguise of security contracts. And again, who had the security contracts for the World Trade Centers? Twin Towers? Yep. Yes, Jeb Bush's company linked again to Israel. Quote, these security contracts use proprietary equipment that is maintained only by Israelis. In this particular case, the proprietary equipment is stated to be, quote, biscopic cameras, which are put in place by security companies operating as front companies on behalf of the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF. Magna BSP, the company which provided, quote, security at the Fukushima nuclear facility in Japan, is one of them. During my investigation of the Fukushima mission, I studied Magna BSP and discovered that in addition to Japan, Magna BSP also has security contracts in place in Brazil, Germany, and of course the United States. All four of these countries have provided the bulk of the massive financial bailouts to the Zionist bankers. And though I have not conclusively proven that all of these countries were blackmailed with the threat of a nuclear Armageddon, the coincidence is very suspicious, and given what happened in Japan, even a little more than suspicious. In the Fukushima report, the reason given was that Japan offered to enrich uranium for Iran. But shortly thereafter, Japan damaged its economy by surrendering 1.7 trillion United States dollars to Jewish bankers, even though no prior debt was owed. He has a picture here of what they call a gun-type nuke. It's a tactical nuke. It looks like a little camera. Again, it's not a very big thing at all. Not at all like the bombs that were dropped over Japan cities. He writes, gun-type nukes do not produce very predictable results. It's a good explanation for why the other two exploded reactors did not produce a mushroom cloud. Fukushima Reactor 4, which exploded, had been defueled and did not even have a core in it. This was proven with the classified photos in my Fukushima report. This made the explosion at Reactor 4 flatly impossible. Okay. Quote, with the inadequately explained and inexcusable absence of helium-3, most of the world's borders are now wide open for Israel to get its deterrent fully in place and have been for some time. I believe Israel has multiple nuclear weapons in place in key areas of the United States, Germany, Japan, and Brazil, and has plans for or has succeeded in smuggling nukes into many other countries. Israel has been able to make hundreds of nuclear weapons from the reactor in Dimona and has stolen enough nuclear material from America to make additional thousands of nuclear weapons. I believe Israel is holding the world nuclear hostage. If anyone says anything, opens their mouth, they get killed. If a nation goes against the will of Israel and does not submit financially, boom. And it will, of all, of course, be blamed on the environment, a meteor, or terrorists, because after all, terrorists smuggle nukes in through the ports. Okay. So, the next time that guy you voted for reneges on his campaign promises immediately after inauguration, the next time your government looks over or forks over unbelievable cash to Jewish banksters and destroys your future, the next time your government sends your children off to die in a war against a nation that never attacked you, next time a 9/11 happens, the next time another SOPA Act passes, or some other legislation no one wants passes and directs hatred at a government that needs our support to survive, consider this article. I know I nailed. Thank you, Jim Stone. Folks, the research at Fort Detrick, Maryland, into biological weaponry, the research that resurrected the mutated killer virus that caused the pandemic flu of 1918. This is all done by Israeli Edomites, reporting directly to the American-Israeli Action Committee. Okay? I mean, just put two and two together, right? It's not so much a nuke that's a problem. It's a problem, but I submit that when you have an ultimate killer weapon, you put some dry runs out there for swine flu and other lesser killing organisms. That's all it takes to hold any politician hostage. Time to take a break. We'll come right back after these messages. Don't go away. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. You know, polls are amazing little things. Polls have to ask the right questions to be significant. What they don't ask, you see, is also significant. Here in, again, this today's Salt Lake Tribune newspaper, there is a research survey done by somebody they call Pew, P-E-W. Maybe it's should be Pew as in stinky, I don't know. But listen, folks, the front page news article, again, amazing. Mormons in both parties fond to admit is the headlines, but what they're sharing here is again what Mormons believe. Okay, it's a survey of Mormons now, and again they just don't ask the right questions, I submit. I mean, this Pew poll, P-E-W, is totally designed to show Americans that Mormons are great people. They're morally good, conservative people. They believe in America. They believe in free enterprise. In fact, now that Mitt Romney is entrenched with his victory in New Hampshire, his landslide win, his victory in Iowa, he's clearly the front runner. And again, that's that's important for the media and the Republicans across the country to say, okay, let's rally our forces behind this man. And so it's just very funny that Pew comes out with this survey, this poll that just flat out is designed to make Christian Americans think, no, I better have some tolerance and you know, maybe Mitt Romney's not such a bad guy after. See, what's happening now, and you can see I can see the media slant now more than ever, and of course it's going to happen this way. It's now a pendulum swing. You've got the socialistic Barack Obama, the Saul Alinsky type of government socialism, the big tax and spend philosophy versus the ultimate icon of capitalism. It's been described in some circles as Saul Alinsky versus Gordon Gekko, the ultimate capitalist corporate raider versus the ultimate anti-corporate socialist. And that's pretty much the way they want to shape it up. And you can bet that the pundits will wrap themselves around big business, corporate, mega rich versus, again, the people's socialism. It's going to be that. And the pendulum swings to the left and the right. Tick-tock, tick-tock. People watch the pendulum. Watch it go back and forth. You are getting very sleepy watching the pendulum tick-tock. Don't worry about anything else. Tick-tock, tick-tock. See, that's what's happening. They don't want you looking behind the curtain. They don't want you looking really at who controls both sides of this so-called dualistic dichotomy. They don't want you to see that it's the banksters, the Edomites that are behind both philosophies, that red socialism is their baby, as is blatant capitalism. It doesn't matter which side of the bench you're on, you're both under their thumb. Those that see that, oh, they're demonized, they're hated, their lives are threatened, their businesses are threatened. In the words of one Edomite who attacked me so violently, so personally, how stupid of you to expose yourself as, quote, a Jew-hating man. I don't hate Jews, but I hate lies and I hate dishonesty. Again, I fight not against flesh and blood, but against evil in high places. Folks, when we're talking Edomite, we're talking about satanic ritual abuse. We're talking about Satanism. We're talking about the very enemy of righteousness, God in the flesh, Emmanuel, Jesus of Nazareth. I am a Christian. I follow Jesus of Nazareth. I will do no less than expose evil. I will tell the truth. Let's take an in-depth look at this Pew survey and some of the questions that they have, and how they're shading this and not even asking the really important questions, okay? The Mormons weigh in on their beliefs in the presidential race in this Pew survey. Huffington Press, right? Okay, here's basically what it says in the articles, and this is again all over about every daily newspaper in Utah is make this front page headlines. Former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney, arguably the nation's best-known Mormon, once was a Mormon missionary. He drinks neither coffee nor tea. His wife, according to Mormon tradition, keeps months' worth of food storage for emergencies. The presidential campaign, along with TV shows and a hit Broadway musical, have propelled this religion into the spotlight, shaping perceptions and subjecting Mormonism to repeated dissections by pastors and pundits. A survey released Wednesday asks Mormons what they think of themselves, sheds new light on how accurate America's picture of one of the country's fastest growing religions may be. The Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life's extensive study, conducted last fall, asked Mormons questions on issues ranging from how they interpret their religion to their views on homosexuality, marriage, politics, and Mormons' place in America. I have to ask the question at this point, if this was conducted last fall, I'm talking about October into November, why is it just now being released? Why is it just now being released after Mitt Romney's victories? See, timing. Oh, let's talk about this. So they ask these Mormons the questions. Quote, fewer than half of Mormons, it turns out, say avoiding caffeine is essential to being a good member of the church. Latter-day Saints church guidelines recommend Mormons keep 3 months' food in case of emergency, but only 23% of Mormons keep that much. When it comes to the missionaries who knock on neighborhood doors, just over 1 in 4, or 25% of church members have done a full-time mission. What does that tell you? Folks, they don't really keep their religious precepts. They just go, and it's a social club. It's a place where they go and show off their latest styles, their best new shirts and ties and suits and nice dresses. It's a social club. They really don't follow the precepts. That is true. That's a problem. See? Quote, 6 in 10 Mormons say they think Americans know little or nothing about their religion, said Gregory Smith, a senior researcher at Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life, whose team surveyed 1,019 Mormons. Let me repeat that. 60% of the Mormons of the survey say they think Americans know little or nothing about their religion. I would say, hey, I bet you 6 in 10 Mormons know little or nothing about their religion. I would say it's even 8 out of 10 Mormons know little about their history, because I tell you, if they did, they wouldn't be Mormon. Again, they just put their head in the sand and ignore it, and it's all about families and about living a good life. But they know nothing of their history. They really don't. They don't think it's important to study history. They don't think it's important to ask questions. They just go with the flow. But here, let's not digress too much. Gregory Smith says, quote, yet there's a dichotomy in the way Mormons think they are perceived in American society compared to the direction of where things may be headed. With 2 Mormons, Romney and former Utah Governor John Huntsman, vying for the Republican presidential nomination, 56% of Mormons said they believe the country is ready for a president who shares their faith, the survey said. 2/3 of Mormons describe themselves as politically conservative, while 3 out of 4, 75%, lean toward the Republican Party. Mormons overwhelmingly said they have favorable views of Romney and Huntsman, but did not take well to President Barack Obama. Mormonism has been a hot-button issue among some evangelical pastors in presidential primary election states. Many of those pastors have said they disagree with Mormon beliefs on issues that include the nature of the Trinity and Scripture. These critics include a prominent Texas minister who made headlines in October for calling Mormonism a, quote, cult. According to the Pew survey, 9 in 10 Mormons believe that the Latter-day Saints church president is a prophet of God and that the Book of Mormon was written by ancient prophets. Boy, 9 out of 10, 1 out of 10 will never be allowed to enter the temple, because if if you don't at least say that you believe the president is a prophet of God, and that you really aren't righteous, not able to go to the temple. 9 out of 10 believe that their president is a prophet of God, and that the Book of Mormon was written by ancient prophets. They believe that, you see, even though there is zero archaeological evidence to prove any of it. None. Zero. Zilch. There's a lot of evidence, you see. Yeah, there's archaeological evidence that pre-Columbian Christians were here in America, but that is again explained by the details of Joseph of Arimathea, the Christian people that came here following the diaspora of Titus. See, there's tons of artifacts of that, but these artifacts disprove the Book of Mormon. They do not support it. And so these artifacts, you see, Mormon church pressures have kept these artifacts from surfacing and being public. Isn't that just interesting? Okay, similarly large percentages, 9 and 10, maybe a little bit higher, similarly large percentages say their families can be bound together for eternity through temple ceremonies, and that God the Father and Jesus Christ are separate physical beings, while the Holy Ghost is a personage of spirit. Families bound together. Let's look at the word bound, and that's, again, Mormonism believes that through the temple ordinances, what will you be bound together on earth and bound together in heaven. Bound means, folks, you're in captivity. Binding means you are not free. Look it up in the dictionary. We read also that Jesus Christ, after the crucifixion, went into the underworld and there destroyed the binding. They released those spirits bound in prison, bound in a prison ward. It's funny that Mormonism has wards, and that's it defined as, again, place of a prison or a psychologically defunct people. I'm just telling you, don't get mad, I'm just telling you what definitions are. It's just funny. So families can be bound together for eternity, where Christ offers freedom. It's not about a family, folks. It's not about family first, it's about Jesus Christ first. It's not about a church first. It's not about a temple or a prophet of man. Man's flesh being first. It's Jesus Christ first. See, that's the primary difference between Christians and Mormons, and you can say all you want, that's the bottom line. So you can argue, well, God the Father and Jesus Christ separate. Well, they are separate because, you see, Joe Smith saw them. He saw them in the sacred grove at 14 years old. And he said, there are separate and distinct individuals. Funny how that first vision evolved many times. Originally, it was simply an angel. For many years, Joseph declared he saw an angel. Only in 1838, when the LDS Church was in an absolute financial mess because of the Kirtland banking society, counterfeit coins and counterfeit banknotes, that Joseph released the official father and son vision, the first girl. Because if Mormons only researched their own history, they'd find that out. But they ignore that. I have no less than 7 official versions of the first vision. 7 different ones, folks. All of them verified. All of them diametrically different than the others. But you see, because of the first vision, Mormons know it's separate and distinct individuals. But there, you see, the scriptures, Mormons believe that God and Jesus Christ are one, where Christ says that my Father is in me and I am my Father. When you see me, you have seen my Father. Well, they say that's just one in mind and purpose, not one in physical. Despite differences from most Christian religions, 97% of Mormons see themselves as Christian. We got to define Christian, you see. Can you just say, because I believe the name, not the reality? I just believe the name, I'm a Christian. See, now, Christians, as Christianity is defined, is biblical Christianity. Mormonism is diametrically opposed to that. Well, they can call themselves Christian by saying, I see we have Jesus Christ in our name of our church. See, there are false Christs. That's all through the Bible. Christ himself said, there will many come in my name, saying, lo here, lo there, or false Christs and false prophets will appear. It's just simple as that. It's another Christ. In fact, Gordon B. Hinckley absolutely said that the Christ of Mormonism is different Christ than the Christ of biblical Christianity. He said it himself. Now, it goes on and says, okay, the same number of Mormons as well as evangelical Protestants, 74%, say that abortion is morally wrong. 79% of Mormons believe sex outside marriage is wrong, compared with 61% of evangelical Protestants. More than half of Mormons say drinking alcohol is morally wrong, compared with less than 1/4 of evangelical Protestants. 2/3 of Mormons say homosexuality should be discouraged, but more than 1/4 say it should be accepted. More Mormons think there is discrimination against gay people, 59%, and Muslims, 55%, than against themselves, 46%. While many members of the Latter-day Saint Church, including Romney and Huntsman, can trace themselves to long lineages of Mormons, 1 in 4 Mormons say they converted. Of those, over half say they joined for the religion's beliefs. Again, beliefs based, again, on propaganda, because they really don't go deeply into the core beliefs of Mormonism. If they did, they wouldn't join, submit, unless, of course, they really want to worship Baal. They really want to worship Satan. Some do. Some think it's part of the magic kingdom, and so they seek that out. And that's part of the dichotomy here. Well, a lot of people said to us things such as, it was true, or I found the truth, said. Other converts, he said, told surveyors Simply, the religion makes sense to me. And quoted in an article, I'm going to come back at the top of the hour with America in Jeopardy. I'm going to tell you what really should be discussed as a question here. And that question is simply to Mormons, is the nation of Israel God's chosen country? Are the so-called Jews of today God's chosen people? I would say 90+%, at least, of Mormons will say absolutely. Because you see, Mormonism, above all else, is Zionism. Zionism on steroids. There are no more pro-Israel people than before. So I'll talk about it when I come back. This is the story behind the story. This is the Micro Effect. Thanks for listening. Don't go away. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the story behind the story. Second hour of the show. Yeah, it's time for America's favorite game show, America in Jeopardy. Here we go. He was born December 27th in the year 1805, actually. And he was, again, a Mormon early apostle, and went and dedicated the Holy Land for the return of the Jews. That's the answer. What's the question? Who was Orson Hyde? Orson. What a story behind the story this is, folks. And again, if you really want to know what drives Mormonism, would you really want to know what the core religion is all about of Mormonism and Mormon temples and the Temple of Jerusalem? Well, here is the big story behind the story. You know, I must say, most Mormons are ignorant about this. They really probably are. It's a shame. It's a shame. But you see, Orson Hyde was one of the early, he was one of the original Mormon apostles under Joseph Smith and Brigham Young. Born January 8th, 1805, passed away at age 73 here in Utah, November 28th of 1878. He, you see, was Edomite Jewish. I mean, completely and totally. Here's what happened. In the year 1830 in Kirtland, Ohio, the man, Orson Hyde, came out publicly against the so-called Mormon Bible, the book. However, you know, he was part of the Campbellite groups. The Campbellites, you see, are Edomites. They are bloodline Edom Jews in synagogues that are basically promoting an apocalyptic type of sect. Now, this was one of Sidney Rigdon's parishioners. Orson Hyde was very much a Campbellite. Sidney Rigdon joined up with the Mormons in 1830, just shortly after it was organized. And thanks again to his connection to Sidney Rigdon, Orson Hyde was baptized a Mormon by Sidney Rigdon on October 30th, 1831, right on the day before All Hallows Eve, 1831. Orson Hyde was he was a flamboyant orator. He spoke well. He was a fantastic voice for the church. Again, the whole concept of Mormonism being Zion came from this guy. That's what you have to, you know, the fame of the Mormon Zion, the call of Israel to accumulate into Zion. This comes from this Zionist Jew, Orson Hyde. His fervor was incredible, and much of Orson Hyde's dogma became part, again, embroiled into Joseph Smith's dogma. He allowed, you see, Joseph Smith allowed Orson Hyde's Zionism to permeate Mormon teachings. It was part of Sidney Rigdon, who was first counselor to Joseph Smith, second counselor for most of the church history. This is where Zionism, that the new Israel, came from. This is what really converted so many of the European converts. It's what really brought so many of the English saints to America. There's something called, in Mormon history, called Zion's Camp in 1834. Zion's Camp, you see, again, most Mormons have no idea of their own history in this regard. Zion's Camp was a militia. It was a movement, a very radical movement, again, prophesied by Joseph Smith, that Zion's Camp would basically carve out the Missouri lands, the Adam-on-Diamond, what Joseph declared was the site of the original Garden of Eden. That Zion's Camp, you see, would cause all of the Gentiles, okay, non-Mormons, or really non-Israel, right, be destroyed. It was a military movement, but it would absolutely come to an ignominious end. They were plagued by disease and sickness. They were cursed. It didn't survive. Zion's Camp was an absolute failure, but yet Orson Hyde marched with it. In 1837, Orson Hyde and Heber C. Kimball are preaching and proselyting in Great Britain, and had incredible success. They brought thousands of converts to the Mormon faith in Great Britain, and the whole message they said was, God has spoken again to a prophet. God, you see, has called upon Israel. They said, Christ is speaking once again. Are you ready to listen? Come to Zion, come to Zion. Israel is established. This was Orson Hyde's dream as an Edomite bloodline, so-called self-styled Jew himself. This is where you see all of the wording of Zion in Mormonism. This is where it all came from Orson Hyde. But you see, there were some problems. He returns from Great Britain back to Kirtland, and lo and behold, he walks right into this hornet's nest. All of Kirtland, Ohio is in an uproar because, you see, Joseph Smith is involved in a financial scandal of immense proportions. He had formed what they called an anti-banking society. The state of Ohio would not charter Joseph Smith's bank that he submitted for charter. Again, 1838 was the year in which the president had declared an end to the central bank charter of the Bank of England, the Rothschild Bank of England. Andrew Jackson had stamped it out and allowed the states to have their own banks of whatever they wanted. The people could have their own banks. So it was a free-for-all to establish banks without a central bank overseeing them. So Joseph Smith said, "Oh, okay, I'm going to get in on this. I'm going to make a bank." But you see, back then, the banks, they were to be chartered. You had to verify assets. You had to verify deposits, verify real wealth, and Joseph Smith didn't have that. The history is complete, folks. He had strong boxes filled with sand and put gold and silver coins on the top of that sand, and it made it appear like he had all these assets, but in fact it was just a sham. And that was discovered. It was uncovered. It was all scandal. Now, at that point in time, folks, if the LDS Church had not been divided, if there was not a branch Zion's camp in Missouri, if it was all centrally located in Kirtland, there would be no Mormon church today. It was that big of a financial crooked scandal. Joseph Smith, under the cover of darkness, ran back to the saints in Missouri. Oliver Cowdery and the others were left holding the financial bag in Kirtland. One of those that was there in Kirtland was Orson Hyde. After seeing all of this scandal, Hyde publicly wrote and argued that God had left the Mormon Church. He, along with his compatriot Thomas B. Marsh, the presiding member of the Quorum of the 12, they both left the church. They resigned on October 19th of 1838. Thomas B. Marsh signed an affidavit along with Orson Hyde and others. They explained the reason for this. Signed on October 24th, 1838 in Richmond, Missouri. Among the problems, they said they knew that the Mormons had organized into a company known as the Danites. They have taken an oath to support the heads of the church in all things they say or do, whether right or wrong. And that Mormon and Danite vigilantes had burned and looted non-Mormon Gentile settlements in Davis County, Missouri. Also in this affidavit, Marsh and Hyde publicly claimed that Joseph Smith planned to take the state of Missouri, and quote, he professes to his people to intend taking over the United States and ultimately the whole world. Oh my goodness, folks. Well, what happened after that, see, is Sidney Rigdon comes back from Missouri, has a meeting with Orson Hyde, and says, well, you see, you're making a mistake, because through Mormonism we can promote Zionism, and that's exactly what caused Orson Hyde to come back into the fold. It's an incredible story. Really, because he left church, and when Brigham Young took over after the death of Joseph Smith, he lost his seniority. See, as he came back in and he was readmitted as an apostle, both Orson Hyde and the prophet Joseph's William Smith, his brother, they both came in and were readmitted to as apostles. Fact is, if Orson Hyde had not left the church during the Kirtland era, he would have actually been the prophet of the church. He was actually in seniority to John Taylor. And a little interesting tidbit, but here is what I want to get at. In April of 1841, just after he had gotten back in church after leaving in 1838. He went to Palestine. Ah, my goodness, this is amazing. This is April 6th of 1840. There was a meeting. You see, the LDS Church was organized on April 6th. It's a very sacred day in Mormonism, but the April 6th is also a very sacred day in the Kabbalah of the B'nai B'rith, the secret societies of Judaism, so-called. So in this meeting on April 6th, a vision opens up to Orson Hyde. And we're shown that the Jewish nations, which are the Edomite nations, have been scattered abroad among the Gentiles for a long period. And in our estimation, meaning his and now Joseph Smith's estimation, the time of the commencement of their return to the Holy Land has already arrived. This is again from the official LDS Church history. So he immediately went on an incredible pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Him and his travel companion, John Page, was supposed to go, but John Page never showed up in New York, the New York harbor, and so Orson Hyde left without him. Ah, boy. So, on April 6, 1840, Joseph Smith dispatched Orson Hyde. Now get this, he was to travel to the cities of London, then Amsterdam, then Constantinople, then Jerusalem, and also other places that he may deem expedient. I mean, guess who is he? He's the ultimate Edomite. He's the ultimate crypto-Jew now. Orson Hyde. London, Amsterdam, Constantinople, and Jerusalem. And there converse with, quote, the priests, rulers, and elders of who? Of the Jews. And obtain from them all the information possible, and communicate the same to some principal paper for publication, that it may have a general circulation throughout the United States. Folks, this is the very seed of Zionism. Orson Hyde does travel there to London, meets with the top Jews of London. Who would that be? Rothschild would be the top Jew. Amsterdam, who is in Holland? You see, the ruling elite of Amsterdam are the Edomite clans, the very purveyors of weaponry, shot and powder, all of this central bank. These are headquarters of organized Edomites claiming to be Jews, Israels. This is who the Bible says, Jews that are not Jews, but of the synagogue of Satan. Then it goes to Constantinople. What is Constantinople but the headquarters of Eastern European so-called Jewry? Out of Constantinople comes all of the directions to the Bolsheviks of Russia. From Constantinople, all of the royal heads of Count Dracul and Vlad Tepes. This is all, again, part of the Eastern bloc of Roman Catholicism, which is Edomite as well. Isn't this just totally jaw-dropping? And then, of course, go to Jerusalem. Most Mormons have no clue about this. Most Mormons have no clue about who Edom and Esau was and is today. And sadly, most Christian pastors don't even know, and sadly, most don't even care, because they've been so blinded by the false prophets and priests from the 1800s to the present. They seem to forget that Jesus of Nazareth sat on the Mount of Olives before his crucifixion and declared that this neck of the woods, this place called Jerusalem, would be desolate spiritually. They forget the other prophetic scriptures that declare that Jerusalem will be a curse to the world, that it is again the headquarters of what is called Sodom and Egypt. So we look back at who really made this all happen when you're looking at the organizer to this, Orson Hyde. So you see, Mormonism, from its very inception, is Zionism. The Zionist movement is a concerted effort between Mormons, Catholics, and so-called bankster Jews to rule the world. This is the most important discussion when you talk about Mormon candidates. This is what will never be discussed in the mainstream media, because you see the backers of Barack Hussein Obama are the same people as behind Mitt Romney. Just that Mitt Romney is going to be even more spiritually rabid Zionism. You see, when they talk about the Zionist movement ruling the world, that's not Mormonism. Mormonism is just an extension of the Edomite plan for dominion. Now, this is clear when you understand who Orson Hyde was, his influence in Mormonism. If Orson Hyde and Sidney Rigdon, these Edomites, had not influenced Joseph Smith, there would be no come to Zion, Zion being established in the mountains of Salt Lake City. You know, this become part of what Mormonism is all about, and it's all about Orson Hyde. See, it's what it is. You look down at, again, more bloodlines. The bloodline of Brigham Young, Edomite, absolutely. The Rosicrucian influences are amazingly powerful. The reason why Brigham Young and Joseph Smith became 33rd degree Masons, because they're part of that bloodline. And the Edomite B'nai B'rith Kabbalah governs them. And every Mormon prophet since then have been directed by that group, by that Kabbalah. So why should you be surprised, you see? When you look at Heber J. Grant, the Heber J. Grant's bloodline, again, is the same. Heber J. Grant's genealogy goes back again to the same Edomite bankers. He had connections into Wall Street's Rothschild and Rockefeller lines. In fact, Heber J. Grant made the LDS Church indebted to the tunes of many millions of dollars in the 1910s, the decade of 10s and 20s, and they mortgaged everything. Mormonism mortgaged Temple Square. The LDS Church mortgaged everything to the Hill, to the Rothschild banks, in order to corner the sugar market. The Utah and Idaho Sugar Company, UNI Sugar, you see. Millions of dollars was spent for factories to process sugar beets. Sugar beets became a very big part of the crop structures of Utah and Idaho. Sugar beets were turned into sugar. The money on the bones, again, the LDS Temple Square, everything, church headquarters, every bit of property was mortgaged by Heber J. Grant for the purpose of cornering the sugar market. They believed this would be their financial meal ticket, keeping them constantly in the black financially. But when the stock market crashed in 1929 and the Great Depression hit, fact, these loans could no longer be serviced. And just like every other corporation that was mortgaged to the hilt, there was a takeover. A new structure was formed, a new corporate structure was formed. The Corporation of the First Presidency was formed. The debt structure, the ownership of those assets were transferred to this corporation, and everything from that point on became secret. See, prior to this Corporation of the First Presidency, the General Conferences of Mormonism, both April and October General Conferences, was an open book. All church leaders and any member that wanted to go in and receive a financial statement, a semi-annual financial statement showing the financial condition of the LDS Church. But with this takeover, with this default in notes and loans to the Zionist banksters, the Edomite banksters of Wall Street, the finances and indeed the corporate structure of Mormonism became a closely guarded secret. Today, no Mormon can get a financial statement, a CAFRA of Mormonism. If you try, any good Mormon listening to this today, hey, prove me wrong, please. Go into the church office building and say, look, here's my temple recommend. I am a worthy member in every way. Hey, I want to see a consolidated annual financial report. I want to see a CAFRA. I challenge you. There won't be anybody taking it up because, that's the quickest way to lose your membership is to go do such a thing. I know. I tried. You see, if Mormonism is truly Christian and not run by Jewish Gestapo strongmen, if it's truly Christian, they'll follow Christ's edicts that all things are transparent. He says, I don't light a candle to the world and hide it under a barrel. Everything is open. I could go to any Christian fellowship church in Utah or anywhere in this country. Whether I'm a member or not, if I'm a prospective member, I'm going to ask the pastor, could you give me a financial statement? Oh, yeah, come on in. Here we go. Here's what we took in last year or last month or last quarter. Here's our outlays. Nothing's secret about the finances. In fact, they're wide open. That's not true in Mormonism. Oh, no. It's a big, dark, deep secret. You'll never find this out. Why is that, folks? Why is that, Mitt Romney? Why is that, John Huntsman Jr.? Oh, folks. Those are the questions that need to be asked by Christian pastors. Not that it's a cult. No. It's Edomite. It's the remnants of Esau and Edom in a powerful secret society. That's the question, and that's what surveys need to point out. We're going to take a break. We'll come back with the final segment of the story behind the story. I know I'm hitting hard, but doggone it, I'm I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of the obfuscation. I'm tired of the terrorist activities going on. What do you think? Be right back after these messages. So we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, we're hitting it hard, you know, and the truth is that it's a two-edged sword. It's tough. It's tough. I just pray from my heart the truth will stand, that these Edomite people will turn from Satan, turn from this false God, and turn to Jesus Christ. I mean, really turn to Him, not just give Him lip service, not just claim He's in a name of a church on a building. Folks, truth needs to be established wherever it goes, no matter what is popular or unpopular. And this is shocking information, but I'm telling you, truth will prevail. This is what needs to be spoken. The mysteries of the temple. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 through 4. Christ, Apostle Paul, said, quote, "Let no man deceive you. Let no man deceive you by any means. For that day, which is the second coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, very son of perdition." Who is this son of perdition, folks? The one who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So it has to happen. See, this is saying that there must be a temple of God there in Old Jerusalem. So this is where it gets very confusing. The main temple-building sect in the world is Mormonism. And what a Mormon temple is all about, they are, again, celestial, best described as celestial masonry, celestial Kabbalism. From April 1841 clear till December of 1842, 18 months, Mormon apostle, Edomite Jew, Orson Hyde, spent these months in Jerusalem. On October 24th of 1841, which you go, by the way, and look right there at that date and time, it's a very high sacred day of Kabbalah. He climbed up the Mount of Olives overlooking the old city of Jerusalem. He wrote down and then verbally recited a prayer. Let me just read a part of it. This prayer says, quote, "Now, O Lord, thy servant has been obedient to the heavenly vision which thou gavest him in his native land. And under the shadow of thine outstretched arm, he has safely arrived in this place to dedicate and consecrate this land unto thee." Now see, this is where you have to... Who is the God of Mormonism? It's not the God of Jesus Christ. It's another God. See, it's another false God. That's what Gordon B. Hinckley declared. The Jesus Christ, the Lord of Mormonism, is not biblical Christ of Christianity. He declared that. So this is the Lord that gave the vision to Orson Hyde. You have safely arrived in this place. He says, "I have safely arrived in this place to dedicate and consecrate this land unto thee." for the gathering together of Judah's scattered remnants, according to the predictions of the holy prophets. See that? Oh, wait. Where's that? In biblical text? No, it's not there. But it's in the synagogue texts of the Zionist Edomites. See? Not in the Holy Bible. No. The Christian Bible, the Christian New Testament, says just the opposite. And I could give you scripture after scripture that this segment of the world, this rock-filled place, this Mount of Olives, the place where, and the skull, this place of the skull, Golgotha, all this it's accursed. It's left desolate. It's to be a curse unto all the world, according to the Christian God of the New Testament. But here you see Orson Hyde is coming in and saying just the complete opposite. He says, quote, to dedicate and consecrate this land unto thee for the building up of Jerusalem again after it has been trodden down by the Gentiles so long. Whoa. No. Jesus Christ himself cursed Jerusalem. Apostle Hyde, are you so blind as not to understand what is clear in the New Testament? That after the crucifixion, that your Edomite synagogues were destroyed in a massive earthquake, the chasm of the earth that Joseph of Arimathea records, as Pontius Pilate records in his report to Tiberius Caesar. Ooh. Dedicate and consecrate this land, he said in his prayer, for the building up of Jerusalem again, after it has been trodden down by the Gentiles so long, and for rearing a temple in honor of thy name. Everlasting thanks be ascribed unto thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that thou hast preserved thy servant from the dangers of the seas, and from the plague and pestilence, which have caused the land to mourn. That's the key part of his dedicational prayer. To dedicate and consecrate this land for two reasons. The building up of Jerusalem again, and for rearing a temple in honor of thy name. Now see, that's the central core of Mormonism. That's the central mission of the Edomite Mormons. You've got to understand that. And sadly, most Mormons have no clue about that. They just know that, oh golly, Israel is so special. Israel is God's chosen people. We can't go against these bankers. We can't call them Edomites. We can't call them evil. We just do whatever they want. That's the Mormon take on the subject. You'll never see a very powerful Mormon like Mitt Romney or John Huntsman ever go against these Edomite power groups, because they are a big part of it. Let me share with you page 226 in Tex Marr's book, The Conspiracy of the Six-Pointed Star. He's talking about rebuilding the temple of God, quote, in Jerusalem. It says, recently a distressed sister contracted my ministry to report that her pastor and church, being avid supporters of Zionist Israel, were taking up offerings to send to Jewish groups in Jerusalem. The money was going to help the Jews rebuild the, quote, temple of God. In this way, her pastor explained, the church would be helping to fulfill Bible prophecy. Texmar says, well, indeed, that is so. Their despicable money project is hastening the day when the final prophecies shall be revealed. That church and hundreds more like it are sending huge sums of money to Jewish Temple Mount organizations whose goal is to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem to replace the existing golden-domed Islamic Mosque of Omar. In their blind ignorance, these Judaizer pastors and congregations are fulfilling prophecy. For the Bible tells us that in the last days, just prior to this coming of Christ, there will be a temple once again in the earthly city of Jerusalem. There, in that most unholy place, the Jews and their other apostate affiliates, in defiance of God Almighty, will there cheerfully and reverently welcome the son of perdition, the very man of sin, folks, the Antichrist, the beast with the number 666. It is inside this rebuilt temple the Scriptures reveal that the Antichrist shall declare that he is God and above all gods. Imagine also the abominable practices which will take place inside this rebuilt temple, ranging from sexual perversion to astrological ritual. See Ezekiel chapter 8 and blood sacrifices. Just think, dear friends, the evangelical churches of America are building a spiritual house for Satan's Antichrist, a sanctuary which he will enter, and therein boldly and blasphemously announce that he, and only he, is the one true God. Incredibly, these spiritually deficient, monstrously deceived Christians are emptying their wallets and purses on behalf of the devil to further the devil's foul agenda here on earth. Jaded and blinded to the truth, they are oblivious to the fact that they are thereby acting as planetary agents for Satan himself. Does it? Could it get any uglier, strange, and horrendously evil than this? Tragically, these muddled and confused Zionist stooges actually think they do God, the real God, service. In the days of his earthly ministry, our Savior Jesus Christ entered the temple in Jerusalem, but the religious leaders were not happy to see him. Of course not. Christ angrily overthrew the tables of the money changers in the temple and sent them packing. He accused these so-called elders of Zion of having turned what should be the house of God into a den of thieves. Then he prophesied to the Samaritan woman at the well, at Jacob's well, quote, "Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father, but the hour cometh and now is when the true worshippers shall worship the Father only in spirit and in truth." That's found in John chapter 4, verse 21 through 23. And folks, the true God, Jesus of Nazareth, dwelleth not ever in man-made temples. And here's what Tex Mars writes, quote, "It has always been the chief desire of Satan's people, whether it be the apostate Edomite Jews," I call them Edomite, he calls them Jews, "the Freemasons, the Vatican, the Mormons, or the Illuminati, to build a temple to serve as the habitat for their, quote, God. Solomon, Herod, and other ancients sought the same thing, but say the Scriptures, howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with human hands. In Acts chapter 7, verse 49, God mockingly directly spurns such efforts of the unwise, proclaiming, quote, Heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool. What house will ye build me, saith the Lord, or what is the place of my rest? To the Greeks, and again, when we talk about the Greeks, the descendants of Alexander the Great, right? The Greeks, the marvelous city of Athens, had built a sumptuous temple. The Greeks, you see, are Edomites, out of the loins of Edom through his Hittite wife, his Hittite plural wife. That's the descendants again. They are Edomites themselves. They built this sumptuous temple, an altar to the deity whom they worshipped in ignorance. They call it the unknown God. Paul the Apostle stood on Mars Hill and trumpeted to them, quote, Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. God, that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. See, that is Mormonism today. They build these temples. They are positioned, the Mormons that go in there and receive their endowments or do their work for the dead, they face the God, and the altars face to the east. All of the Mormon endowment rooms, the altars face the east. The men and women sit separately with their backs to the west, their faces to the east, and worship this unknown God. They think it's Jesus Christ, but they don't read the Scriptures. They know now. I'm declaring to them that Jesus Christ will not come into this temple ever, but Satan will. Lucifer, the son of the morning, will. Baal, the sun god. All synonymous, they will. I have to declare the truth, folks. It's what it is. So here we see Orson Hyde, 1841, October 24th. Dedicating and, quote, consecrating this land, the same land at probably the same spot where Jesus of Nazareth cursed it. This Mormon apostle comes on the very same spot, overlooks the same ancient city, and blesses it and consecrates it unto his God. Diametrically opposed to Jesus himself, who probably shed a tear or two and wept and mourned and lamented, O Jerusalem, thou that stonest the prophets, how oft I would gather you as a hen gathers her chicks, but he would. Jesus of Nazareth, he knew these Edomites had one last chance to repent, to come unto God, to accept the new covenant, to accept him. He told them who he was. He was that who would fulfill the law of Moses. He was the Lamb, the sacrificial Lamb of God. Oh, how he hoped that they would turn unto truth, turn unto Father, turn unto him. They mocked him. They spit on him. They conspired to put him to death, most horrendous, torturous way known to man. They would, and Christ wept that night, that day, or whatever time it was. There on the Mount of Olives, the same place that Orson Hyde goes, probably the exact same spot, who knows, sure. Where Christ said, Behold, The city is now left unto you desolate, becoming a curse unto all nations. Orson Hyde comes, and with his prophetic vision, that in direction of the Mormon prophet Joseph Smith, you see, seeks to be an anti-Christian blessing. Blessing it for the return of Orson Hyde's Edomites. Basically, blossoming the flame of Zionism worldwide. When I was active, and very strong active in Mormonism, I know I was in kind of an elite circle in Mormonism. And I was told many times that all of the prophetic events of the last days would be culminating around key Mormons who were predestined to do great things in the Holy Land. That they would appear and be there in the temple of Jerusalem at the time of the appearance of Christ. See, they just, oh my goodness. The scriptures are very clear that in that temple in Jerusalem would not be Jesus Christ appearing. It would be the son of perdition himself, the Antichrist prophet. It only makes me wonder who that man can be. A very charismatic politician, very smooth-talking, pretty boy, a golden boy. Could that be Mitt Romney? Could he be there, seeing that being fulfilled, fulfilling the prayer of Orson Hyde? See, things just don't happen by accident in politics. Oh, no, no. It happens by grand design and plan. Mitt Romney backed out in 2008, promised he would go to the very end of his campaign, but then he dropped out and threw his support to McCain. Just basically bowed out quickly. You see, he was promised. It wasn't his time. Not yet. Be patient. Your time is coming. It may not be 2012. Maybe this precursor, Barack Hussein Obama, the Edomites' golden boy, too, just preparing the way for Mormonism's false prophet. Oh boy. It's an exciting time to be alive, yes indeed, but I just invite Mormons, good, the Mormon people are good people. Why, they are, I know they are. Love them dearly. They're my family, they're my friends. I just advise them to come to Christ. Come to the true Christ. You can find Jesus Christ in spite of Mormonism, not because of Mormonism. Don't go into these temples of Baal and take upon yourself the apron, the symbol of priesthoods and powers of Satan. It's so, it's identified as that in the endowment. It's identified as Satan's emblem of priesthoods and powers, so why do you do it? Folks, that's my message today. Look up for Orson Hyde in Memorial Garden. There's a really great piece in Wikipedia all about it. You can see this stone, this carving there with the prayer of Orson Hyde. Know that the prime ministers from David Ben-Gurion on down have memorized the prayer of Orson Hyde. It's all very part of Israel's identity. Make no mistake about that. We're going to say goodbye. We'll come back tomorrow with more story behind the story. You be well and be safe. Fighting the war on error, this is the story behind the story. Have a good day.